Hey guys, I just wanted to show you the lab setup for lab 6 over enzyme catalysis. If you are on one side of the table and the other side of the table here, you'll actually be sharing resources with each other. So I just kind of wanted to go through what everything is, and then we'll talk a little bit about the lab procedures. First, you have a hot water bath. This is going to have to be set to boiling initially, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you'll have to turn it down to physiological temperature to represent the human system. Then you also have room water temperature and an ice bath. Now the ice will actually be in the freezer. This isn't going to be solid ice because then you couldn't put the test tube inside of it. So you're going to fill this up with as much ice as you can get in there and still have room to put the test tube in. You have some instruments to help you cut up your enzyme sources. You have a thermometer if you need a measuring device there. You've got your tongs for the hot and cold water environments, and you have a pipette. Over here you have your beaker for your hydrogen peroxide, and I'll show you where you can get that in just a second. You'll also have your 3 sources. These will be filled for you, your 3 sources of the enzyme for the lab, and then of course your 4 test tubes that are already pre-labeled for you. Okay, so this is what our lab sheet looks like. I just kind of went through, and you do have to wear your safety goggles. These are the things you're going to start off doing. Make sure that your liver pieces are equal size. I'll show you in class how big they need to be, but they should be pretty small. And then you actually have 3 different parts to this lab. So part 1 is just going to be measuring the normal activity of enzyme catalase. Then part 2, I recommend that part of your lab station starts here and part of your lab station starts with number 1. But section 2 is going to look at how temperature affects enzyme catalase, and then over here we have the effect of pH on catalase. Okay, so I would have 1/2 of this table start off and start with number 1, procedure 1, and then the other half of this table over here, I would have them start off with part 2. So each one of our tables here should have half doing part 1 and half doing part 2. Okay. So this setup for part 2 takes a little bit longer because you have to boil the liver for 5 minutes. You also need to fill all of the test tubes with hydrogen peroxide and then let them sit for 10 minutes in the ice bath, in the room temperature bath, and in the warm water bath. So that's going to take you like about 15 minutes, probably a little bit more, so you can wait for the hot water to cool down. So you probably want to start off, like I said, half of you guys start off with this part first, okay? Obviously, like I said, you can't stick a test tube in solid ice. So your ice bath temperature here, you're going to have to change that. It's not going to be 0. You'll have to record your temperature. Okay, and then you'll have to get the water for the warm water bath after you stop boiling. You'll have to get it as close to physiological temperature as you can, okay? So make sure that you pay attention to that. The room temperature, there's nothing we can do to change the room because our thermostat is just for show in my classroom. So make sure that you are recording that temperature there. So speaking of temperature, I want to show you, this is the thermometer. Okay, it's a digital thermometer. There's an on-off button and then a Celsius and Fahrenheit button. And then you see this little clip thing on it. It's called a sheath, and it's to protect it. So you actually have to take it out of the sheath or it won't work. Okay, so you're actually looking for the metal probe, and that's what you will stick into the water, and you will let it read the temperature, okay? But you cannot stick the sheath part into the solution because it's actually protecting the thermometer lead, so you won't get any reading if you just shove this whole thing in there. Okay, you have to take it out in order to get an accurate reading. Otherwise, you're just measuring the temperature of the plastic, which is useless for the lab. Okay, so please make sure that you pay attention to that. Okay, one other thing I needed to point out, these are 1 milliliter pipettes. So in each one of these steps, let's see, is it on the first page? Yep, 5 milliliters of hydrogen peroxide. If this is 1 milliliter, you will just need to fill this up 5 times, okay? So you will grab 1 pipette, put it in your tube, 1 pipette, put it in your tube. You'll do that 5 times, but for each one of the tubes, okay? These are also kind of not great, and they break pretty easily. That's okay. I'll show you where you can get more of those in just a second. While you're waiting for the water to boil and all of that other stuff, make sure that you're looking at the post-lab section, okay? So you can make sure that you're able to answer these questions. You will be building a 3-dimensional model and creating a video report. I would recommend not writing on this page because you can use this as a resource during your video, so you don't have to like remember what these questions are. You can just look at the questions and then answer them, okay? So again, One half of your table is going to be starting off with part 1. One half of your table is going to be starting off with part 2. If one side or the other is missing a resource, it's because you are to share the resource with the table, okay? And then if you need to replace any of your labels or anything, if they fall off in the boiling water, you can just add some tape and use a Sharpie to relabel whatever you need to. The last part on here deals with pH. So we're going to be actually moving over here. So this is the pH station. So I have a strong acid and a strong base, and I'll have the respective pipettes actually in each one. Do not mix them. And then there's also some pH paper over here. So following the directions in the lab, you'll use a few drops of the acid and a few drops of the base to put into each of the test tubes to make sure that you have 4 different pH levels. You'll verify them with the pH paper, and please make sure to throw away all of your trash. Again, like I said, if you need a new label or something, there are plenty of Sharpies here, and then there's tape at each lab station that you can replace any of those. If you need pipettes because yours has broken, that's pretty common, you can just grab a new one here. And if you need new hydrogen peroxide, you can grab some here. Don't fill your beaker up completely, just pour a little bit because you only need 5 milliliters at a time. And also remember that it's in a, opaque bottle here because it reacts with light. So if you have the whole beaker just sitting out in the light, yours is going to rapidly turn into water and then your reaction will not work, okay? So this is gonna be your resource center to come and get all of your stuff to do the pH part, so the part 3. This is where you're gonna get an extra Sharpie. You have tape at all of the lab stations. If you need an extra pipette, if you need extra hydrogen peroxide, all of that is here for you. And then of course the freezer with the ice in it for the ice bath is through this door. You're gonna walk over here, and it's on the other side of where my little skeleton is here. It's right on the other side of that wall, and it will have a bag of ice in there for you to set up your ice bath. Okay, so please make sure that you look over the directions and that you've kind of watched this so you understand where all of your materials are, what you're using them for before you come into lab, just to make sure that everyone's prepared. Obviously, make sure that you have your PPE when you're coming into the room, so I don't want to see any of your skin. We are dealing with concentrated hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide as well as hydrogen peroxide, and I don't want any of that on your skin. We're also dealing with some sharper instruments here. If you drop them, I don't want it going through your foot. Please make sure that you're wearing closed-toed shoes that cover your foot, not little ballet flats. Please make sure that your pants cover your legs. Don't wear shorts, okay? Don't wear a crop top or anything. You're not supposed to wear those at school anyway. And if you have long hair, please make sure that you pull it back. That way you're not gonna lean over and get it into some raw liver. That would be pretty disgusting. Okay, well, thanks for watching this. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you in lab.